We're here.
It's working.
All right. So you wait. Let me check on my phone. Hey guys. Invite your friends. We
Yes.
are going to have a black and white
Conversation.
conversation. A black and white conversation. I'm so excited about this partnership. I'm so excited. So if you see us looking back and forth, it's because we're looking at multiple screens.
You know
We're
how Ty does.
right. We're not crazy. We're just looking at different screens. But I'm so. Hold on, just 1 second.
Make it work.
Yes, I'm so excited. Come in just a little bit, fix our hair.
Yeah.
Yes, girl. So, as you all know, my name is Ty Lewis, and I don't do lives with just everybody. I don't. But this is my friend, and we're going to have a black and white conversation.
Yes.
Just open and honest and just intentional. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about just black and white experiences, how we can build relationships, because this conversation, it needs to be said or had. It really does. So we're going to
there's
delve
not a lot
in.
of people doing it.
Right.
Or doing it well.
Right. Nobody's talking about it. So we decided to take the leap, and we decided to just step out and be intentional so that we can talk and just answer questions. And I love some of the questions that you guys submitted. Whoa,
we got a lot.
Right.
We're gonna have to do several.
Right. And touch your hearts.
Yes.
Give us our hearts, honey. Give us our likes and our hearts. But we're going to be real and raw. And if you know me, if you're joining in on live, you know I keep it real 100%. I don't hold back. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And we're going to be open and honest. So share, make sure you share, hit the share button, and invite your friends. This is a black and white conversation, real, raw, and relevant.
Yes. And
all right,
you want to talk about how we met? We met through our church.
Yes.
Probably what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
When you were walking through the Oval saying hello to everybody.
Right.
And you came and said hello to me.
Yes, as always.
Yes. And we just kind of, we really hung out from that point on.
Yeah.
I think.
One thing that I love about Susan is just like she's real. I saw a lot of me in her. She says whatever. She does not play, and she just keeps it real. So we clicked instantly. Just going to each other's house.
Yes.
Hanging out at the Lecrae concert.
Yes.
We click and just we have so much fun together. And again, she's just so real. And I love the thing that I love about her the most is that she's open to having these conversations. And if you're joining in on my end, Susan has a black son, so she's going to talk about this process. And I'm again honest, so I go to, I'm not gonna call my church, but I go to a church. If you know me, you know what church. And one of the things that stood out to me the most was seeing a lot of white families and they had black children.
Yeah.
So I was in shock. And I was just like, why? And I'm keeping it real. Okay. Yeah. So if you're on Susan's broadcast and you don't know me, my bad. But I was like, why do all these white people have these black kids?
Right.
And I was like, what are y'all doing with our children?
Yes.
So when I hooked up with Susan, I just saw the intentionality and how she raised her son, and she's going to talk about that. And it wasn't just I have this black child, it's I have a black child and I'm intentional about raising this black child. She takes him and just immerses him in black culture. So they go to a black barber shop, they have black friends. So when you're around Susan, like I'm not her plus one. I'll tell anybody, like, if you have me as a black friend, I am not your token black friend. I'm not your plus one. If I'm your girl, I'm your girl. I'm not the one y'all gonna introduce at the barbecue. Like, this is my only black friend. Nah, that ain't me. So I just loved her intentionality. But anyway, tell us about Amos.
I think that's good. We were called to adopt, oh gosh, it's been like 6 years ago, and wanted to do a domestic adoption, and it just didn't work out. And ended up doing an adoption in a country where we were involved in doing empowerment for the native people, which is Uganda. And we got to meet Amos, and he became our son. And I think I really quickly realized that there was a lot of things I didn't know about raising him. And I didn't want to fall into that trap of being a savior, of being, this person riding in that's going to make everything okay. And so I just started really pulling on a lot of conversations and friends that we had. I mean, when my husband and I got engaged, 20 years ago, we
she doesn't look old, honey. She doesn't
look
old.
You keep me young.
Yes.
But we were mentored by my husband's long-term mentor, who is a Black pastor here in town. And one of the things that he sat and talked with us about 20 years ago is, I want you guys to diversify your relationships. And he kind of went in more detail about that, meaning like, I want you to pursue people that are different than you, socioeconomic, race, whatever it is. And something that was really powerful that he told us is that that's not going to be natural in the beginning. It's not going to be organic. I think we all want to just gravitate towards people and think, oh, it's just going to flow. Like how it's flowing with us. Well, that took time. You know what I mean?
Can we put a pin right here and talk about that?
Yeah.
So, what was that one of the questions?
It was, but we can talk about it now.
The natural organic relationship.
Right.
For me, going to, I would say, what our church is about 80% white or more.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it depends on the day.
Yeah, it depends on the day. So a lot more Black people are coming. So, but just having those intentional relationships, for me, I grew up in a Black church. I grew up around Black people all of the time. All of my schools were Black. I went to an HBCU, so I just had that Black experience. So me shifting and God calling us to our church and planting us there for this season that we're in right now was a shock to me. I'll never forget getting out of the car and walking in the building, and all I saw was a bunch of white people. And so I turned to my husband,
and then everybody comes running to you to shake your hand. Is that how it works?
Right. And so I saw all these white people, and I turned to my husband. I was like, "You already know what it is." And so I turned to my girls. I said, "Act like we've been here before." And we got out the car, and I was like, "Y'all, just act like you've been here before." And so the doors, they swung open, and they were like, "Is this your first time, visiting?" And I was like, dang, they know we Black.
They know.
And but just meeting people and engaging in conversations. And I think a lot of times we have that barrier where it's just like, oh, you're white and you're Black, and I really don't know how to talk to you. And it's like, no, we're people. Do we have the same, likes? Do we dislike, different things? Are we on the same page? Do we love God? Do we like to go to concerts? What is it that is going to make us just mesh and come together? Just like if she were Black, if she, it would be like, oh, you my homegirl. It's the same thing. And I believe we allow the color to come between us. Like, I really don't know how to approach her because she's white, or I really don't know how to approach her because she's Black. And it's like, no, just approach them because they're a person. And I'm not saying that color doesn't matter, because it does matter. I want people to stop saying I don't see color, because
no.
we
don't say that here.
Right. Yes, you do. You do see color. But just having that conversation and saying, yo, like, this is my girl. I'm a ride or die for her. If Susan need to go and cut up some tires, what's up? We ready. And okay, sorry, my bad. But that's the type of relationship that we have. So we have to just make sure that we're intentional, even with our kids coming together, and spending time with one another. I have a lot of white people that call me friend, and we don't spend time together. And we were talking about that earlier. And I was just like, how am I your friend and you having a party and I'm looking on Instagram scrolling and I'm not there, so we just have to be careful with language, how we treat each other, how just being intentional about involving everybody in the process of getting to know. And yes, it's awkward at first. It really is, because it's two different worlds. But if we're intentional, and if we are, let's be honest, if we are women and men of God and we follow Christ, then we have to build relationships. Because if you only have white friends, or if you only have Black friends, and then you get up to heaven, you're gonna be really surprised.
You'll be sad that you missed out. Because you're missing out on heaven. Here on earth.
And if I'm not your friend, girl, you're missing out. you're missing out.
It's true.
Yeah, you're
We
missing
have
out.
fun.
Yes.
But we pursued those relationships, and it was, you know, at first, you know, you feel like, oh, I'm inviting someone over. What's it going to be like? But
Right.
it becomes more and more natural,
Right.
and you learn a rhythm
Right.
to relationship,
Right.
like you would with anybody else. And so we were really thankful that by the time Amos joined our family, we had just such a depth of wisdom in our friends that we
Right.
could pull from and learn from and value. And so from day one, I mean, I remember being at the airport picking up Josh and Amos as they were pulling in, and there was like, I don't know, 100 people came to welcome them home. It was incredible. But one of my mentors, who is a Black woman, kind of snatched me over the side and was like talking about another adopted family. Was like, whose kids are those?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's my friend so and so. And she was like, you need to tell her to get their hair in check. Like, we're all
Hold up.
Yes.
Listen.
Yes.
And I keep it real in 100. If y'all have Black kids, do those Black kids hair.
That's
y'all.
true.
I can't say what I want to say.
I know.
Y'all stop letting those kids walk around and their hair's not combed. Like, stop just throwing water, because okay, look, they're not white. You cannot throw water on, and you can't use dry shampoo and dry conditioner.
Yep.
Take those babies to a Black salon. You cannot throw water. If you look up under my hair is nappy, okay? So if you put water on here, it's going to roll
it
up,
and
it's not. So you have to make sure, like, I went through over $300 worth of products when I cut my hair off before I really was able to find the products, and there were Black products, but find the products that work for my hair.
Right.
So Black people, we have 3A, 3B, 4A, 4C, honey, RESPECT, and all that type of hair. So you have to make sure,
and it can be different in different spots as well, which is something
because it's my hair is more curly at the top than it is in the back. In the back. So you have to make sure that you are taking care. Y'all take care of y'all Black kids.
So there's that.
Yes.
And
PSA.
Yes. And so we were through this journey of learning, and kind of, we have a lot of Black male mentors in his life that meet with him that I think are really important. You know, my husband goes to the barbershop and gets his beard and hair done there with him. These are all things that are important, but it really wasn't until, oh man, I think it was when Trayvon was murdered that just drove something home for me. And and I just realized that's my baby in 7-8 years, you know. And he was like 7 at the time, and that really set me on this vision of, like, my son. I know he was probably close to 7, because I remember thinking in 10 years he's going to be driving a car and he's going to be pulled over.
And so let's stop there. This one of the things, that I went to Wisconsin to speak at a conference, and it was specifically a conference for white families who adopted Black children. So again, we have all of these white families in the room, and they have Black kids. So you see thousands of Black kids running around, and you have these Black kids in the room, and the theme from every Black child was like, my parents don't understand. They don't understand what it means for us to be Black.
Right.
Like, they don't understand what it means, because you're privileged.
Right.
For me as a Black person or a Black male to be driving, and a police stops the car, and I can't say I have a white mom and daddy. So I guess to you, if you're watching this and you have Black children, one thing that I want you to understand is that your Black child does not receive the access or the privilege that you have because they're Black, and because they're being raised by you.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to immerse them in the culture. That's why it's so important to talk to them about, things that are going on in the world. That's why it's so important, especially if you have a Black child, to advocate for Black rights. And that's why we say Black Lives Matter, because when you're ignoring it and you're saying, oh, God is going to handle it, we're all children of God, like, no, that's not our reality. And for Susan, and I want you to, can you talk about the instance when you guys slapped butts at home and you had to tell Amos he couldn't do that?
Oh yeah.
So
there's a lot of things like that. Where, and as he's now an 11-year-old,
right.
about to be 11-year-old this year, young man,
Right.
there's even more and more of those types of conversations we're having to have them. But I mean, my kids like to run around and pop each other on
Right.
the rear end, and that's one of the things we've had to really cut out for him, is that you as a black young man in this world, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that because it's different. And I'm sad,
Yeah.
and I hate that that's the fact, but it's different. And there's been a lot of those sorts of things that I've had to learn, and the first step was to kind of go through a reconciliation circle,
Right.
sitting with people of a lot of different backgrounds, and talk about these things, and reading a ton of books, and listening to a ton of podcasts,
Yeah.
and trying to really learn history that
Right.
as a white person growing up here, I didn't know my country's history.
Right.
And a lot of it was really shocking for me. And having to have conversations with people and reorient their minds. It's just kind of been this journey. But I tell you, I feel like in the past year, what I've been seeing is something that I don't know if you've read Austin Channing Brown's book, I'm Still Here,
Mm-mm.
but it's a really quick read. It's a great book. And in it, she kind of alludes to it as well, but it's just this fatigue
Mhm.
that I'm sensing
Yeah.
in my black friends.
Yes.
They're tired
Right.
of educating white people
Yes.
about, yes, black experience, but about American history.
Yes.
And about the reality of what it is to live here. And like, Austin talks about it in her book that she was kind of one of a handful of black people in her organization, and anything that happened in the news or anything that came up to the white people that worked in her office, they'd come to her
Mhm.
and ask her to explain it, and ask her to explain it. And she was tired of it. She was exhausted.
It
and
is, I think, the end of last year, because you're seeing more and more black males die, especially at the hands of cops, and people are saying, well, I don't understand, like, why are you guys in such an uproar? And it's just like, you see the increase, you see white males, or being arrested by cops, and they're taking off, and they've killed hundreds of people, and it's like, oh, I'm going to take you peacefully, and I'm going to get you Burger King, and you're arrested and you're fine, but our black men have to die. And that is so exhausting. Like, it's exhausting when my husband has 3 degrees. We're a middle class black family. We go to church. I'm a businesswoman, but my girls, because they see the things that are happening on TV, you know what they say? They say, Daddy, we don't want you to leave because we don't know if you're coming home. Like, that is exhausting to know that my black husband can leave, and because he's black, if he stopped, he could be shot first, and questions asked later.
And I think, I just want to interrupt here, because I think as a white woman, knowing my original instinct to that years ago was like, well, that's not the whole story. There's complexities. There's, all the sorts of things. Each story is individual. And I really believe that there's a lot of white people that are watching this right now that are feeling that. And I want to speak to that feeling right now and tell you, yes, there are complexities to each story.
Yeah,
And there
different
are
things happen.
Yes. And I think I want to make clear too, Ty is not saying that she's against our police officers or our military or any of that
I
kind of
want
stuff.
you to do your job.
Not at all.
But I want you to stop killing us.
Yeah. And so, but that's, I think we need to make that clear, because I feel like there's a lot of white people that hear things like Black Lives Matter or Stop Killing Us, and they take it to this other side, thinking, well, that person hates people that are sacrificing their lives to protect us.
And
that's not the case.
That's not what we're saying.
That's not the case. So
when we say Black Lives Matter, we're saying, think about us, just in simple terms, for a little child to understand. Think about us. Think about our life. Our life matters. Like, you can't possibly keep clicking the TV and not have empathy, sympathy for us, and saying, dang, like, what is really going on? There are a lot of, like, I don't know the numbers from last year, but the numbers are alarming. Like, it's crazy, and again, it's exhausting. So when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that white people don't matter, Native Americans don't matter. What we're saying is, you guys are killing us at an alarming alarming rate. So we want you to say, we really care about you. And instead of killing us, we can take, those extra steps and take you away to jail peacefully without a bullet.
Mhm. So I think a lot of being able to understand what she's saying is knowing history
Yeah.
and kind of knowing the systemic and generational disadvantage
Right.
that has plagued Black people from the beginning. And this is one of the, I mean, we can probably jump into one of the questions.
Okay.
That wasn't there, this one that somebody sent in that says, it bothers me that white people today are being blamed for what others did hundreds of years ago. I love everybody, and I think we need to focus on what is positive today and keep moving forward. So we talked about this a little before, and I completely understand that attitude. Like, I understand, and there's a lot of times in your life where you have to focus on moving forward and what the future is and staying positive. Right.
But
exactly.
I want you guys to understand, like, my father is 87 years old.
Right.
My grandmother died a couple of years ago. She was 102 years old. So when you talk about just forget about the past, like, you're talking about generations. Like, hear me. My daddy is 87. So my grandfather and his father was a slave. So my grandfather stayed on a slave plantation.
Right.
Y'all, that generation is so close together. So when you talk about just forget about it, you have to think about what my father saw. Like, they went through the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
My dad saw so much. My grandmother at 102 years old saw so much. So when you say just forget about it, you have to look at it as, I'm sitting at my grandmother's feet and she's telling me these stories, and I'm just like, oh,
and that's the present for you.
Yeah, this is the present
and
for
I
me.
think what's different is and again, I don't speak for all white people, and Ty didn't speak for all Black people, but I would say for the majority of white people that I know, when we've had these conversations and their attitude is about, that was in the past. White people are in a position where we're not forced to think about race very often.
At all.
Right.
Say at all.
It's very, well, for me at least, it's probably a little more than most, but not all. And so that's what's hard is that when the race conversation comes up, we don't have that muscle flex.
Right.
It's a weak muscle. I mean, you think about when you're working out and you haven't worked out once in your life,
right,
what that looks like. And so that, I think, is the tendency to say, we don't have to think about it, so let's just keep moving forward.
Right.
But what you're saying is, that was my grandfather.
Right.
That was one of the things I was telling Ty earlier is that when I was reading a book about history, and it was talking about how so many of Black families here in America, their last name is actually the last name of the person that owned previous family members in their generation. The slave owners, the plantation owners, that's their last name, because their names and their family legacy was completely eradicated when they were abducted and brought to America. That was shocking to me, to think that I could meet my friend, whoever Smith,
and we don't have our own identity.
Still to this day, they're living under the name,
the attachment.
Right. And so I think that's what makes it really hard for people to accept, for Black people to hear us say, move forward or whatever.
Right.
And so what really needs to be happening is what's happening here.
Right, the dialogue.
It needs to be the dialogue. It needs to be the conversation. And I think that leads to another really good question that somebody sent in, which is, I want to take part, but I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing or offending others if I get involved in a talk like this. So what should I do?
That's case by case, because like if you know me and you're watching this broadcast and you're white, you can come and say anything to me. I don't get offended at all. Like, you can't offend me.
Or you'll say, you're offending me, stop.
Right. I'm like, what are you talking about? But you can talk to me about anything. So again, that's from person to person, because we have these conversations every time we go out to lunch. Right. We have open dialogues, just so that we can become better. Yeah. So if you need to talk to somebody Black, come to me. because I keep it real. And I mean, I'm going to have that honest conversation with you, but in love.
Right.
Everybody is not like that. So what should you do? You find that closest black friend that's cool and that can talk to you, or you find that white friend that you can go to and talk to, and you
Right.
guys have that open conversation. Don't just talk to any random black person
Right.
or white person.
Well, and I also think a big part of it is that a lot of white people will come to maybe even a black person they don't know very well, someone they work with in
Yeah.
their office, and start jumping into this really deep dialogue that's not appropriate in the
Yeah.
first place.
And
I
then you
mean,
don't have a relationship
you
with
don't have
them.
the relationship, and so then you're all of a sudden you're expecting them to answer all these questions for you, and that's an intimate, very deep conversation to have with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion is, if you are feeling things and you have questions, go off and educate yourself as much as you can.
Right.
As much as you can. There are so many resources out
So
there,
many
so many
resources.
great books,
Google.
so many great podcasts, so many great things, and learn what you can, and then go into the conversation. So, I mean, I think about when we used to live in Europe, and when we would go to France, the fact that we would try to speak French to people, that was a huge deal to them.
Yeah.
You know, that like, just if you take that step forward to understand somebody else and talk to them, that's going to make a bigger difference. And I think the second part of it too is that you need to have a humble attitude.
Yes.
I think that yes, you may offend somebody.
They said, "Go, girl."
So you need to be able to apologize.
Yeah.
I think when it's okay.
It's okay to say sorry.
It's okay and it's also okay, like when you're having stuff like this. I've had friends in so many different conversations that I've had where they've said, the way you said that,
yeah,
that was not good.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of constructive criticism.
And let me say this. So I was at an event, and we were having a discussion, and I'm not going to say where, but they were talking, and so we were talking about diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like, you're black, you can bring the black people. And I'm like, no, we all do this legwork together. And then somebody said, well, why don't we go to the Negro churches? Y'all.
Don't use that word.
Go to the Negro churches.
Don't use that.
Y'all. So my husband knows I'm crazy. So he just tapped me, like, Todd, and right, just relax. So I didn't say anything or whatever, but that shows the miseducation, like Negro churches.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And so that goes into the question, should I say black or African American?
Yes. That's all. I mean, I think that, like, that to me has been the number one question whenever anyone's talked to me.
For me, I don't care. As long as you don't call me.
The end.
That's it. But and I've been called that. But African American, black, I don't care. That's that's case by case. That's from black person to black person. Some people say they're just hard up. You have to call me African American. Some people are just like, I'm black. For me, I don't care.
Right.
It's not that serious to me.
And I've been in, like, I remember a reconciliation circle conversation we had years ago where we had two women that had very differing viewpoints on that. One was like, don't call me black, I'm African American. The other was like, no, I'm clearly black. And I got to sit and listen to them talk about it. And the one thing that I took away from the conversation when we left was that if you are in doubt, err on the side of African American. You know, that's, you're least likely to offend somebody.
Or just ask.
Yeah. And the second is just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you say black and they are not okay with that, say, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry. And remember, from that point on, I'm going to always use African American when I'm talking with whoever it is.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, I think that if you have a humble heart and you're willing to apologize and make change with anybody in any situation, but in this type of dialogue too, it goes a long way.
Right. Because
like, don't be afraid of that.
It's a hard conversation to have, especially if you don't have two people like, we're rare, like, right, really rare, but because we're open and just real and raw, but the conversation is hard. It's very hard. And it's hard to find people that are very open and are willing to have the dialogue and not just like, oh, you can't say this, or I'm nervous, so can we go to this question?
Let's go for it.
So this question, and so people send in questions. So why are white women so fascinated with black women's hair or black culture? Go.
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 Go. Yeah,
Um,
when we got this question yesterday, I thought it was really interesting because I have two different viewpoints as a white woman.
so white
But
women,
then,
let's say this. Black women do not like for you to touch our
no,
hair. Don't
don't do it.
like don't
No, no, black children do not like for you to
do
touch
not
their
touch
hair.
our
Just
children's hair.
don't
If
touch
they have
black people's
puffs,
hair.
don't do like
Don't do it.
that. Don't
No.
say, "Oh, your hair was short yesterday and today it's long."
Yes.
We diversify in our hair. Today, y'all know my hair is short. Today I have weave. Tomorrow I may be bald headed. The next day I may have a front lace wig. But at the end of the day, do not touch my hair.
Right.
And for us,
Yes.
hair is sacred.
Yes.
It's who we are. Don't go, oh, let me rub my hair.
Yes.
A lot of people touch my girls' hair. They love to touch their locks. And it's just like, and I understand the fascination because I could, like I said, today I could be like this, tomorrow I could be bald headed. And you're like, well, what did you do with your
And
hair?
I think that's a big part of it. Number
Yeah.
one is that white, yeah, I know everybody's cracking up, is that white women can't do with our hair
Yeah.
what you can do with your hair.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a fascination. I think there's a lot of white people that don't know black people and have never been around a black person's hair and don't understand half the words you just said.
Yeah. Or
And
just
they're not
ask.
educated. Right.
Like again, for
And so
me,
there's this sort of like fascination
Yeah.
with that. But I was talking because this question came up, and I asked a friend of mine, and she was like, "I've tried to put a braid in my hair, and it just slides right out. Like I don't know." I mean, it's so there's this fascination.
Yeah.
But I also know I think about my son Amos, and one of the biggest conversations we've had to have with people is about people touching his hair.
Yeah.
And every single time, I mean, he's cried at the. I mean, people. I remember my 7, 8-year-old son crying at the dinner table because people won't quit touching his hair. And when
It's
we
like,
talk to the parents, their answer is, but yeah, he's fascinated. He's never touched it. He doesn't know. He's learning. Okay. But it really is.
it makes us feel like pets.
Well, that's it. I was going to say it's inappropriate for you to think that my son is an opportunity for your child
Right.
to learn something, no matter what it is. Hair, but I think there's the second part that white people, we don't view our hair in the same way that, like you talked about, the crown of beauty,
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into just even history,
Like
of how
it's
things are expressed.
like it's adorned. When a black woman gets some weave,
yes.
honey, you
how
can't
much time
tell
she
me
invested
nothing.
in this.
I'm
Yes.
gonna swing this hair. I'm gonna put it all over. But Susan is not
But
gonna
I won't
touch
touch
my
it.
weave. But honey, I'm just like, girl, yes. And I'm talking. It makes us feel
Yes.
beautiful. It is our
Yes.
thing, hair and eyebrows. But just again, for me, if you say, Ty, can I touch your hair? Or I like this,
Mhm.
I'll say yes because
But
I'm
again,
not like
that's
that.
an incredibly intimate thing.
Right.
That's so intimate. And
Like my
again,
husband pulls my hair.
Yes, yes. And again, I think coming in, okay, we'll go move right on because this is a daytime conversation. You are a fool. And so we have to realize that there's a lack of respect that's
Right.
happening there. And I think, coming in and asking intimate questions, coming in and touching someone physically, that those are crossing boundaries that are not appropriate.
Right.
And number one, why do you assume that's okay?
Right.
I think that that's something that you need to understand. And I really didn't fully get it until I started seeing it with my son. I mean, and what's hard is, and I'm still trying to find words to explain this. I'll probably talk about it at some other point as I'm working on it, but that there is this aspect within white culture of the do-gooder, of the helper, of the, I've heard it called white savior. I've heard it called, whatever it is. And, I hate using semantical terms because I feel like you can alienate people in certain ways. But part of that is there's this, you think, but I love everybody.
Right.
But I love this child whose hair I'm touching. And so at the same time, I'm loving them, but I'm also disrespecting them. And I have not taken the time to get to know and understand. And so for me, a conversation, we were talking about this earlier, is that I've educated myself on what it took for Ty to have her hair look like this. So I can come in and have a conversation with her and say, so how long were you in the chair?
6 hours for this.
How many packs did that? I mean, I can sit and that's how I can
Right.
have the conversation with her. And again, it is my responsibility to educate myself, to have an intellectual conversation
Right.
with you about it, and not just be like, let me touch your hair to learn something from myself.
Right.
So, all right.
If let's do this one.
Okay.
Do white women deem black women as competition? If so, why and in what way?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for me, that has, I'm probably not the most representative person of this, because I really have always tried to discipline myself to not look at any woman as competition for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't view a black woman as competition. I mean, there's been many a time that a black woman has schooled me in a lot of different things. So
Mm-hmm.
there was competition in that sense. But I don't think there's a natural competition. Now, I mean, I think this feeds into the other conversation, the other question. What was it? About like, have you ever wished you were black, or is there one thing that is naturally afforded to only black women? What would that be? I think those are all kind of coming from
Yeah.
the same place, because I mean, I'm not naive to the fact that I have seen I mean, you've got women, white women with cornrows
Mm-hmm.
over here, and then you've got like Rachel Dolezal over here, who clearly is commandeering all those things, commandeering from black culture,
Right.
all the things that she wants for herself to make her own.
But so let me.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm gonna ask this, and then I'm gonna go into this question. So let me answer this one. Do I see a white woman as competition?
Mhm.
And just from a spiritual standpoint, nobody is competition.
Right.
I'm my only competition.
Right.
But I do see you guys as having the advantage and the privilege.
Mhm.
So and this is just honest, I've experienced it, and a lot of white people don't understand this, because you don't have to go through it. But if I went to an interview and a white woman went to an interview, 10 times out of 10, that white woman is going to get the job. So if you're talking about competition in that sense,
Mhm.
yes. But then on the other hand, as a child of God, what God has for me is for me,
Right.
and nobody can take that away from me. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
twofold.
I
And,
know.
in my thinking,
And we're like super spiritual,
right, we're so
really
deep,
holy women,
right, real
so
holy.
yeah.
But so it's hard, but advantage, yes. Privilege, yes. A lot of you guys are afforded privilege that you don't even understand, and you don't see it as privilege, because it's everyday. It's an
Mhm.
everyday thing
Mhm.
for you. I often
Like,
say,
I want to tell a great example of that. So I think that word can be, I even hate the word trigger, because I just feel like, people, come on. But that word white privilege can trigger things
it
in
can.
people because of maybe some way someone has explained it to you before. But the way that it really got driven home to me, and the way that I can understand, is that there are advantages which within the culture
Mm-hmm.
that go to white people. And so I remember one of the first times that really stood out for me with Amos is that he had fallen and cut his knee. We took him in the house, and I put a Band-Aid on him, and it stood out. Like, that Band-Aid was standing out, and I'd never seen a Band-Aid stand out on my skin before. I'd never seen a Band-Aid stand out on my girls before. Those Band-Aids are called flesh-colored Band-Aids. And here on Amos, it was so super clear that a flesh-colored, sold in the CVS, is this,
Right.
is this. And so immediately, I mean, everything started flowing into my mind of like, here I am trying to take this white culture and paste it over
Right.
his pain,
Right.
who he is.
That's good.
Right. And
Look at you being
Hey.
deep. Come on, deepness. Yes.
and so but it doesn't work. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It made it worse. It actually pointed to his pain.
Right.
It made a bigger attention out of it. And so I had to call my friend Karen and talk through all of that with her and learn from that. And to me, I think that's a tiny, minute way of looking at what privilege is. That I was in Bible study the other day, and there was a woman that was probably my mom's age, and she was talking about how her son was at the grocery store and went out to the parking lot I mean, I guess this was last week even, and there was a man that was screaming at this black woman who had started to pull out when he was pulling out, and they almost hit cars or something. And he was, I mean, cussing her up and down. Apparently, another white man came in to one woman
Mm-hmm.
with children in a car, came up and, I mean, N word, every
Yeah.
other ultimately three white men came up to this woman in the Publix parking lot, calling her everything, including the N word up and
Right.
down. And that, that, no one was doing anything.
Right.
No one was responding. No one was doing anything. And she said ultimately her son came in, and that was a great thing that he did. But even that, it took a long time.
Right.
You know, and to me, that is a dominance
Yeah.
that's happening within the culture. One, that people feel that they even have the right to do that.
Right.
You know, and yes, I see someone said they make other bandages. Yes, they do. They make
They
other
do.
bandages. Ty has some. I've seen them. Was that you that had
Mhm.
them? Okay. Yes, they do, which is awesome.
It's called brownage.
Yes, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, so or maybe 6. So anyway, that is just something that I feel like think turn the tables. If that had been three black men
Mm-hmm.
yelling those things at a white woman,
baby,
right? The response, I mean,
another hashtag.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's more of what
Yeah.
we're talking about when we say that. This is good, I think.
Oh, I want to ask this question. Why is it that you accept our culture, music, dance, hair, but you reject us?
I think that's a really good question.
So you want everything that deals with black culture separate from the black person.
I mean, isn't that what the whole movie Get Out was about?
Yeah.
I mean, go if you haven't seen that movie, I think that's a really great.
White people go watch Get Out.
Yes, and it is a quote unquote horror film, but it's really
the messages.
Yes, the message is so much deeper than that, and really plays to this idea of white people taking all these things that are beautiful and valuable in their eyes in black culture and taking it and making it their own.
Right.
And I mean, there's a lot that can be said about that. I mean, I think that there is a view of that I can go and take the things that I want, and I think that feeds back into touching someone's hair.
Yeah,
that feeds back into this idea. It's a disrespect of what is unique. And I also feel like, as I've talked with some people about that kind of thing, it feeds into that lie that color blindness, that we're all the same.
Right.
And I just want to say that is absolutely not good. Oh, my husband just said white people like foreign culture because they don't identify
Please
as white.
Stop texting us.
He's like, you're ignoring me. You got to say this.
What did he say?
But he said that white people, what was it?
White.
I don't know. I'll have to pull it up later. But because white people don't have their own culture. And I think that's true too. Like, because we are the culture of America, that we don't have our own unique culture,
right?
Things that go with
so
that.
it's white. America is white.
Yeah.
You can disagree with me if you want to. We can argue about it. But America is white.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
are
just
the most influential race over the country.
Very white. But black people do have culture. You think about the music, just everything. The inventions, just black people, you know, and it's just like, I can do that. I can cornrow my hair now, you know, I can have these styles, I can get a big booty, you know, I can do lip injections like Kylie Jenner, I can do all of that, but it's just like, you know, but I'm not black. So I still don't like black people. I like what you black guys are doing. Like, I love that you running that basketball down the court. I love that you running that football,
I like that base.
Right down the, you know, field. But that is good enough for us. As long as you're on the field, as long as you're on the court, as long as you're singing, that is amazing. But other than that, we don't need you. Can we talk about this? Like, going to a white church, and this is a conversation that I have amongst my peers, and we talk about going to a white church, and you have a good number of black people in your flock, and you think diversity is putting two people on the stage singing, and you saying we diverse. What is that about?
I think that is trying to represent feeling like that if someone comes to the church and they see someone that looks like them, they're more likely to come back. That's what I believe the answer would be.
What do y'all say?
Let's see.
As long as we're
As long as we're
entertaining.
entertaining. Oh, wait,
I
is
think
that
that's
for
from the
something else?
last one. Okay, so and again, I have these conversations because when I go to a church, I want to see diversity.
Mhm.
I don't want just to see Black people on stage. I want to see you in every area on the board. Excuse me, if you're on the board, you're leading ministries. I want to see somebody that looks like me. And again, not just in entertainment, because we can entertain you all day. You can come to my house and I'll entertain you. But I don't want to feel like we're being used just for entertainment, but we can be used in leadership positions,
Yeah.
you know. And I think for Black people, especially those who attend a white church, and somebody on here may say, well, why are you going to a white church? Why don't you go to a Black church? And for me, I always follow God. And
because we're super spiritual.
right, because we're super deep.
Yeah.
But wherever God calls me and my family, that is where we're going for the season that he calls us in. When he releases us, because I'm there for a reason. So when he releases us, that is when we move. But I'm in the places that I am because I'm following the voice of God. So, and it could be to say, hey, you know what, speak up. We need more diversity. You know, I need to see more Black people. Or, and even though this is a black and white conversation, I want to see Native Americans, Hispanics, all that stuff like that. But more so, I do want to see Black people. Diversity means in all areas of an organization having different races. That is correct. Yes.
Yep. We've still got a bunch of questions here.
So hold on. So are all of Susan's white friends as aware as her? Has she? Okay, so let me go back to
no,
this.
this is good. I want to answer
As
this
aware as her, has she helped any to change their views?
I would, and actually, I would love to talk about
Go.
that because we, my husband is on the same boat as I am, and this has been something that anybody that's on my page or whatever has known and had one of these conversations with me because we love to talk about the things that we're learning
Right.
with other white people. And that's one of the reasons I started Hello Susan Robinson, is that I feel like it is a responsibility to help other white people understand these things.
Right.
And that's part of the problem of things continuing to move forward, is that so many times people won't speak up in conversation because they're afraid of how everyone's going to respond,
Right.
or they're going to get offended. And so what I think is you have to speak up. And
Right.
so that's what I've been trying to do. There's actually, like, as I'm thinking about this stuff, you know, we're actually talking about doing a podcast down the road and a couple different things. And there, I can think of like 5 friends off the top of my head right now that I would love to interview about their own process of things that we've gotten to talk about, and they become more aware, gone off and educated themselves, and then they're talking with other people.
For me, I don't know anybody as woke as Susan, like for white people. I don't. And that's why I roll with her. That, I mean, it's just, it is what it is. She's marching. She's all about Black Lives Matter. She's about rights. She's about just making sure, she's about diversity, everything. Personally, me, I don't know anybody as woke with her.
But part of that,
She is Ashley. She can come to the cookout.
Thank you. You know,
And you should meet her.
I love the cookout.
You should meet her husband, Josh. Josh
He's
not
fine.
Josh not white. Josh is black. He not white. He just looks white.
He just, yeah, you just think that. You just think that.
Okay.
All right, this is good. How do you make sure you're not overcompensating when interacting with other races? What makes the other race feel uncomfortable, like you're doing the most?
Okay, so for me, like when you're talking to me, I don't, if you're white, of course, don't come to me trying to act Black. Look at Josh talking about
Josh said preach.
So don't come to me thinking that you have to act a certain way,
right?
Because I'm going to pick up on your spirit and I'm going to give you the side eye. I don't need you to act Black. Like, I have my Black friends, and I don't need you to do that. I want you to be white.
Mhm.
I want to love you where you are and for who
Yeah.
you are. So I don't need you to come to me. Like, I was getting my nails done, and the Korean guy was like, "What's up, girl? How you doing?" And I was looking at him like, "What fool? What are you talking about? You know, don't do that to me, because that's not how you talk. That's not how you
Yeah,
talk
be
to
who
your
you are.
people. Be who you are. You know, so I'm going to be me. I'm not going to change. Now, if I need something and I need to call corporate, I'm going to change my voice, like, hello. And so if you are on here, my name is Takesha. In a white world, Takesha does not fly. So I had to shorten my name to Ty.
Yes.
And that's another conversation for another day.
I have another friend named Tadashi that had to do the exact same thing when he was selling cars, and he would answer the phone. He was in Texas selling cars, and he would say, you know, "This is Toyota, Tadashi speaking." And people would ask for someone else, or they would hang up. And he's changed it and started saying Ted.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "This is Ted Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you?" And his stuff went through the roof. He said he like started selling cars left and right.
Listen, I can white it up. Let me tell you, one of my white girlfriends, one of my white girlfriends, she taught me this. White women know how to write letters. Mm-hmm. So
I didn't teach her that.
No, she didn't teach me that. So one of my white girlfriends, something happened at school, and she was like, "I'm going to write a letter to the Board of Education," and she got what she wanted. So I was like, "Listen, let me write some letters." Mm-hmm. And it's just I'm going to be who I am. That's just the whole gist of it. Mm-hmm. But if I need to be the other side, I'm going to do that. But again, if you're coming to us, just be who you are. Like Susan doesn't, she's not like, "What's up, girl?" She doesn't do that. We are who we are. Yeah. Yes. I didn't know your name was Takesha. It is. So
yes.
That's my mama, honey.
Yes, it is. And I would totally agree. And I think that if you are confident in who you are and you know your purpose of why you're there, there's no need to try to be all things.
Right. Just be yourself. Yes,
exactly.
I'm going to love you for who you are. Right. Like,
and that's not part of what dialogue or reconciliation or whatever you want to call it is us trying to be like each other. It's, again, that feeds back into that whole, like, we're all the same. You know, I'm colorblind.
No,
and that's not helpful.
Not
it's
at
not
all.
helpful. Ty is not the same as I am. Mm-mm. She is uniquely gifted and made to be exactly who she is in God. And he's given her a specific assignment, just like he's given me. And I'm called to celebrate everything about her that is unique.
The diversity.
And exactly, just like she's called to do that for me. So if you're feeling like that you have to do that to have a conversation with somebody, you may want to find somebody else to go have a conversation with.
What?
Have we done that one?
So much. No, let's leave that, because that'll be. No, let's leave that. Okay. Let's do this.
Okay.
So last question before we log off. What Ty wishes white people knew? Did you write that?
No, of course not.
Oh.
Or I already know what you wish white people would.
What? Okay, let's do Susan. Susan, what do you wish black people knew?
Well, that's pretty open-ended. I don't know. I mean, I think that I wish they knew that most white people are not like the crazy white people that you see on TV that are doing all the crazy things. I think the loudest people are the smallest amount of people.
Right.
Most white people that I talk to, and again, I'm just saying most, they want to have dialogue. They want to have unity. They want to understand. And that's most. But I think, again, as we've seen from some of these questions and what people are saying, they're afraid.
Yeah.
They are intimidated.
Right.
They don't have the words to say. And that goes back to them needing to educate themselves.
Right.
And I think that if another thing that I would love for our Black friends to hear is that instead of answering a white person's question, if they come to you and ask for a question, I almost feel like that's enabling a little bit. Like, yes, answer it as you want to have a dialogue, but point them towards a way that they can teach themselves, that they can take action on themselves. That, like, if I sit down and I read an entire book versus Ty tells me something, it's different. You know, I have to own the responsibility and the learning. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
Um, I think that for white people, we live in a really different mentality than the Black community does,
Hmm.
because white people view themselves as individuals.
Yeah.
Like, it just individually, everything I do has nothing to do with anybody else in the
Where
room.
Black people is,
It's communal,
yeah, it's
yes. And
family, a
like
tribe.
the way that one of my friends explained it to me is like, if I walk into a room as a Black person, I first notice every other Black person that's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, if any of those Black people start acting up in that room, I immediately become nervous,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just as responsible as they are, because we are connected. There's
Right.
this connectivity that happens. That is not the same for white people. White people do not think that way.
Yeah.
At least most do not think that way. And so that's why I think when we have a lot of conversations, particularly around things like the murder of Black men and things like that, that white people are coming at it from a really different view of saying that's an individual person,
Yeah.
that they did this, that, and that's why this happened, instead of being able to understand from the Black perspective of, you know, that's a part of my community.
Right.
You
Our
know,
fam.
all
Mm-hmm.
Black men, yes, are experiencing this. So
Right.
that's my family.
Right.
And I think that really affects a lot of the conversation too.
What I wish white people knew, hmm, I don't know. I wish that white people, I want to change from new, that just wouldn't
Yeah.
assume that
Mm-hmm.
Black women were angry and loud.
Mm.
If anybody knows me, you know that I am loud. But I'm
That's so
passionate.
sweet. Yeah.
But
And supportive.
I am supportive. I
Mm-hmm.
will have your back. I
Mm-hmm.
will cut tires for you. Again, I'm riding a dying for
Right.
you.
Right.
I'm whatever you need, I'm there for you. But when you see me being passionate and loud, it's just a fiber. It's in Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we're not angry. We are just again passionate.
Right.
I wish you knew that like it's okay to be cool with us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it, there's nothing like we're different as far as culture, but I am still a human.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you knew that it hurts Black people when you don't take the initiative to say, you know what, I see you
Mm-hmm.
and you do matter.
Mm-hmm.
And not just pacify us. And it's like, oh, that's just another Black
Mm-hmm.
person, I don't know. And I wish you knew that at the end of the day, regardless of what you say, you are privileged and you do have privilege that is not afforded to Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a
And
lot
that
of,
with that comes a responsibility and an opportunity,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
to be able to level that up. And I mean, I think part of what is hard in this conversation is that when someone carries that sort of privilege, part of leveling the playing field means giving up some things,
right,
you know, and what that looks like. And I think that that needs to be part of the conversation moving forward,
right,
is what does it look like as a white woman
right.
here? What do I need to give up for you to be able
To,
to, yeah, to be
yeah,
able to level the playing field for
right.
all of us?
And that Black women are not hood. We are not like other, like you stop putting us all in one category, like you said.
Yeah.
What you see on TV is not that professional Black woman or Black male. All of our men, they're not thugs.
Right.
All of the Black men I know are professional working Black men.
Mm-hmm.
So don't judge us based on what you see on TV or reality shows, because that's just a small fraction of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you knew that our kids, like, and I see you have 121 remaining, but one of the things that I told Susan was, one thing that I hate is when I'm out at restaurants and old white women take it upon themselves to, they could be across the room 6 miles away, but they're going to find my Black family to tell my Black family
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, your girls are so good, as if they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be acting like wild monkeys. And
Mm-hmm.
that happens to us all of the time. So I wish you knew that we didn't like that. And I also wish you knew, like, a white woman in the store saw my oldest daughter dancing, and my daughter is a ballerina, and she was like,
She's
oh,
amazing.
are you going to be the next Beyonce? And I'm like, no, my child is not going to be shaken from Magic City.
Right.
You know, like, come on, don't relate my child to Beyonce. And I love the old Beyonce, but don't put her in that same category, because my child could be dancing with Alvin Ailey, you know.
And she has.
Yes, and
she
she has,
Yes.
and with Debbie Allen. So don't group us like we're hood rich, because, you know, I could flip it up on you. I can go in a corporate room, and I can go in the projects and chill with Ray Ray in them. So anyway, we have to go on Instagram.
Say bye-bye to Ray Ray.
So we love we love you guys.
Love you guys.
Thank you so much for joining in on our conversation. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. This is not the end of the dialogue. We're going to continue this. This is just a scratch, a little scratch in the surface. And we thank you guys for joining us. If you have any more questions or anything like that, let us know. All right. Love you guys. Bye. Wait, don't do anything.